Now that we're set up for surround, in this movie we'll go into some techniques for panning with the Logic Surround Panner. To put a track into surround, let's choose the snowboard sequence track. Go into the track inspector, and under where it says output, let's change it from stereo to surround. This gives us the surround panner as you can see in the channel strip. It's hard to control from this view and see from this view, but if we double click on it, we get a pop-up window view of our surround panner. This is Logic's Surround Panner. As you can see, we're working with a 5.1 surround setup. We've got our left, center, and right speaker outputs, and our left surround, our right surround speaker outputs, and our LFE level is controlled down here. The dot in the middle is called a puck. When we move the puck around the panner, if we have surround sound set up, you can hear the sound going to the different speakers in our room. Since we're only in a stereo output situation, when I go to the left surround and the right surround, we don't hear anything. You do hear it going across the left and the right, front. The angle and diversity displays are at the top of the window, and you probably saw them moving and changing values as I moved the puck around. When the angle is at 0, the puck is directly in the middle at the front. You can also double-click in here and type a value. When the angle is at minus 180, it means it's directly behind the viewer. And when the value is positive, the puck's on the right. When the value is negative, the puck's on the left. Diversity is the amount the signal is spread to other speakers. It's a value between 0 and 1. So as it approaches 0, it becomes more defined to a particular speaker. And that's why when we were in the left surround, we didn't hear anything because the whole signal is going through the left surround speaker, a speaker which we don't have any output to right now. But as I get closer to the angle 1, the sound gets spread to the other speakers. And that's why we're able to hear it more, even though the puck's angled towards the left surround speaker. As the diversity gets more towards 1, it spreads the sound to the other speakers, and it's spreading a little bit into the right and left, and that's why we're able to hear it. Let's put another track into surround. This time I'm going to choose the atmospheric strobe track. I'm going to unsolo that track. Now here in the atmospheric strobe track, I'm going to go into stereo out and choose surround for its output, and I'm going to double click on it. Now notice this looks a little different from the snowboard sequence track we were just looking at. That's because this is a stereo software instrument track, and because of that we get a stereo panner inside our surround panner. We have a left and a right. Moving the center puck keeps the left and right channels linked, as you can see here. But you can also experiment by clicking on the left or right independently to widen or narrow the image. Sometimes you might want to place a sound across the front speakers, but lower the center level, the amount going to the center channel. You can do this by the center level slider at the bottom of the panner. And remember, the LFE level, which is the 0.1 of your 5.1 system, can be accessed by turning up the LFE slider for any surround-enabled channel. You can use that for the low rumble we might need for certain sound effects. If you want more control or restriction of the amount of separation between your channels, you can open the disclosure triangle at the bottom of the surround panner. This gives you more control between the values of 0 and 1 for the left and right speakers, the rear speakers, or the front-back percentage. If I click and drag in these values, you see what I mean. It gives us a restriction here. See, if I go down to, say, 30% or 0.30, I have a restricted diversity of angle of listening between the front speakers. And as I move it back towards 1, the stereo image re-widens out to full range. I can do this for the back, the front, and also the front to back ratio. So if you wanted something to be very narrow, not fully wide in your surround panning, you can use these advanced separation tools. But normally, in most typical surround mixing, we leave everything at 1 and have full range. Certain software instruments are made to natively output in surround, and it'll give you that option when you call them up. An example of this is the EXS24, which happens to be the software instrument on the atmospheric strobe track. I'm going to close the movie inspector for a second so we can see it. There it is. There's the EXS24. Now when I go into this software instrument assignment, you notice there's a triangle here, and right now it's set to stereo because that's how I originally opened the project. But notice there's a 5.1 option. And really what this does is it makes the outputs of the EXS24 able to talk independently to all of our surround outputs. So if I was going to mix this project in surround, I definitely would want to go in there and change the EXS24 to output in surround. That's much more powerful than just panning a stereo track into surround. It's much cooler if the instrument itself is already talking to our 5.1 channels. Finally, some plugins have multi-mono modes on surround-enabled tracks. If we open the compressor assignment slot here, you'll notice I can set it to stereo or multi-mono. If I choose multi-mono, it looks like a normal compressor, except you have some configuration controls at the top. Let's click on configuration. This allows us to group certain surround outputs to different compression. For example, we can put our left and right speakers on group A, as we have them here. We can put our center channel on group B, and we can put our left and right surrounds on group C. Now when I click on the LR button, which was our group A, these compression controls are only affecting the left and right channels of our surround outputs. If I click on C, I have separate compressor controls for just the center channel. Click on the left surround, right surround. These compression controls are just specifically for the left and right surround. And then I have a separate LFE one that was there by default. So that's the power of a multi-mono plugin and how you can set it up to independently control your surround outputs. Most plugins have that option. I know Space Designer also has a surround output, and there it is. Surround mixing opens up a whole new world of possibility to your mix. It's up to you to decide whether you want to recreate a naturalistic room environment or a completely immersive listening space with sounds flying all around the room.